Yusuf, happy Friday, and thanks for joining R4E today.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to reconnect with you. And before we started recording here, I know we were just kind of walking through how we were connected, but I'm excited to jump into that story. Maybe before we do, we can talk about your walk-up song. Probably the first guest to pick a walk-up song with no lyrics to it. And so would love Scud Books by Hudson Mohawk. I never heard the song before. I don't know who Hudson Mohawk is. So maybe you can get me up to speed on why that song's significant to you, why that's your walk-up song.
Sure. Hudson Mohawk is a producer that kind of rose to people's attention in like the mid-aughts. This is maybe a little weird to say right now. I'm a big fan of Kanye West music. Maybe not necessarily his decisions or things that he does, but he was using a lot of Hudson Mohawk's work around that time. Jesus, Watch the Throne, and so I fell in love with Hudson's music at that point. That particular song just feels like royalty to me. I mean, if you were a king or queen or in present times and you were entering a great hall, you got the trumpets, you got the drums. I can't hear that song and not get excited. It's the song I was listening to in my earbuds when I graduated from George Mason and picked up my degree, my master's degree. So yes, I did have earbuds in during my commencement ceremony. But yeah, just have always loved the song.
That's awesome. I went down a rabbit hole looking through the YouTube comments, and I feel like a lot of people resonated with what you were saying there. And I'm excited for folks to check it out because I really thought it was a fascinating song. And like I said, very unique compared to some of the others that folks have picked, not better or worse, just different. And so thanks for sharing that. And maybe for those who don't know you, I'd love to allow you the opportunity to give the quick primer on Yusuf Abugideiri and let everyone know who you are.
Sure. I'll try to keep this brief. Those who know me know I can tend to be a bit wordy. I've been a financial planner for 14 years. I'm a partner and senior financial planner at Yeske Buie. I've only ever worked at Yeske Buie for my professional career. Outside of work, I'm married. My wife's name is Megan. She is a Hokie. We met at orientation. And we have 2 children. Noah, our son, is 5. Ryan, our daughter, is 2. And in terms of personal interests, shoes, music, sports, big LeBron guy. LeBron's the GOAT. If we want to make this an interesting conversation, we could have some debate there. But yeah, close to my family. I don't know, pretty simple.
That's a helpful jump pad for me to start peppering you with questions. So I guess first of all, did you grow up in the DC area? I know that we're both pretty close now, but where are you from?
Yeah, I was born in Florida, but my family moved up here when I was about 2. And so lived in Loudoun County, which is kind of on the farthest outskirts of what's considered the Northern Virginia DMV area. But I mean, when we moved here in '89, it was like cow country. And now the sprawl goes well past what we thought was the end of civilization. So yeah, been in this area my whole life.
Okay. So then the question that I have to ask is, why are you a LeBron fan then if you're a DC guy?
So I have vivid memories of watching LeBron on TV as a high school student when I was in middle school.
Okay.
And the word potential has always been thrown at me. Teachers, mentors, you've got a lot of potential. You've got a lot of potential. But, and there was always a but, you need to work on this. You need to do this. You need to make sure you overcome this. LeBron, more so than any other prospect in any sport I've encountered in my life, was hit with that tag of potential, and he made good. I mean, he made good on everything, and never got in trouble. Like, never did anything, bad. a couple controversies here and there, but nothing like terrible. And to me, as someone who myself has had, a little bit of success, a little bit of recognition in the social media age, trying to think about what someone like him goes through on a daily basis, and the fact that he still made good on all the expectations and then some, it's just incredible to me. I have nothing but respect and admiration for him. And then when it comes down to stats, no one scored more points. You know what I mean? Yeah, you could go on and on. And the final piece for me is that he's a Hall of Fame player. Find me a general manager who showed up in 3 different cities and delivered a championship by year 2 in any sport. There's nobody out there. So I mean, he's playing for the team, he's building the team, he's winning rings. He's the GOAT.
I'm always partial to MJ because we share the same birthday, but I can't argue with that. Can't argue with that logic there. And a more in-depth answer than I've heard from any of my friends when we're making these same arguments. So to your point, I'm sure we could go on for many hours and no one would listen to this. So maybe we'll see if we have some more time at the end. But let's dive into more of your story here. So you grew up in the DC area. You ended up going to Virginia Tech. You met your wife at who was going to end up being your wife at orientation. What was your experience like at Tech? And then from there, that can hopefully help dictate how we can talk about how the two of us overlapped at some point.
I hated high school. I did not have a good experience in high school. Meanwhile, my brother, who's 2 years younger, was homecoming king, prom king. He had like the quintessential high school experience. And I used that to share about Tech. Tech for me was that quintessential experience. People talk about the best 4 years of your life, et cetera, et cetera. And coming out of high school, I was very much hoping to have a different experience. And as I look back and reflect, and now, I mean, I graduated in 2009, even with this much perspective, there's not a single thing I would have changed about my 4 years. The friends, certainly the things that I learned in the classroom, outside of the classroom, all the various experiences, all the surprises. I went in thinking I was going to come out doing a certain thing, and I didn't even know what financial planning was as a freshman or a sophomore. And so then find a career and all that, a life partner. It was just a tremendous experience.
What did you think you were going to go when you're going into Tech? What did you think you were going to walk out doing?
Oh, I used to tell people I was going to be the CFO of a Fortune 500 company, wear a 3-piece suit and drive a nice car. It sounded good. I mean, the image looked good in my mind, but I didn't know what that meant when I was saying that was my goal. Why was that your
kind of vision that you had going in freshman year? What do you think dictated that?
I didn't say CEO because I felt like that would be saying too much. I said CFO because I had it explained to me early on that, the difference between accounting and finance is people in accounting organize information. People in finance then take that information and make decisions. That sounded cool to me. And I felt like I needed to be somewhere in the C-suite. And that was about all the depth of thought that I put into it.
Fair enough. So you said until your freshman or sophomore year, did you end up having a teacher that ended up getting onto the CFP track, or what was that light bulb that went off for you?
Yeah, Derek Clock, who was one of the program directors for the CFP program at that time. I was in his concepts and skills course. It's my fall of junior year. I had heard that the time value of money exam was extremely challenging. And that exam happened to fall during Ramadan that year. I was fasting. So I went to see him during office hours and said, hey, look, I'm going to be in Linton Reeves taking this exam. It's going to be right around sunset. I'm just checking with you to make sure it's okay if I pull out a sandwich, while I'm taking the exam. He said, yeah, sure, no problem. But that got his attention. So then he's watching me take the exam. And 45 minutes left maybe in the period. He walked up to me in the classroom and picked up the exam and is like, flipping through it. He looks at me, he's like, why haven't you turned this in? And I'm looking around like, I got time. I'm reviewing. I'm trying to make sure, I'm going to do well. It's supposed to be a really challenging course, really challenging exam. And he looked me dead in the eyes and he's like, you're not going to score lower than a 92. Do you want your exam back? And I was like, no. And he said, okay, great. Wait for me outside. And so he calls one of the proctors and says, watch over the room or whatever. And we're outside and he looks at me and says, why aren't you confident? And I was like, okay, clearly you don't know me because most of the people in my life are giving me feedback about being overconfident. But it was like, you were done, you weren't putting any more marks on your paper, and yet you wouldn't turn it in. And I was like, okay, you were watching me the whole time. Okay, this is awkward. So we had a brief discussion, and then ultimately he said, come see me in office hours next week. I want to talk to you about financial planning. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, I want to talk to you about financial planning. And then so he introduced me to the career, and it's all history from there.
That's very interesting. I remember Professor Koch. I never had him personally. I was on the CFA track as opposed to the CFP track, but only heard positive things. So he got you onto the financial planning track. What was that relationship like with the two of you through the rest of your time in Blacksburg? And if you guys still keep in touch today?
Yeah, I text him every time I come into town. We're close. He and his wife, Dr. Litton, were at my wedding. He took pictures for me when I proposed to my wife. I proposed to her on top of War Memorial Chapel between the pylons. And I asked him, this was 3 or 4 years after we graduated. I just texted him and said, hey, I'm going to propose. I need somebody to take pictures. I don't know anybody left in Blacksburg. Can you help me out? And he was in those bushes, kind of right there, off to the side of the chapel there and helped me out in a big way. So I definitely close, very strong relationship.
Too cool. Yeah. So maybe fast forwarding for the listeners here. So for me, I guess this would have been spring of 2015, where I was first exposed to you. It was almost like quasi orientation, like experience called Hokey Focus, where I came down to Blacksburg, was able to go. It was a time where you were starting to pick majors, trying to figure out what you wanted to do. I was in Pamplin, Pamplin's a business school in Blacksburg, and I was trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. And lo and behold, you were the special guest speaker in one of my sessions. And from there, that's where kind of my interest and passion peaked. From the funnel of business undecided was a major that a lot of freshmen came into tech choosing. I was still business undecided going in my freshman year, but I knew that finance was the route that I wanted to go because of that day in Hokey Focus and your speech. And you mentioned passion earlier and your passion for what you do. And so that's really why I wanted to have you on the show and walk through kind of your experiences and your history in the world of kind of financial planning and where you are today. But before we were filming, we were talking about this full circle moment of Hokey Focus. And so I'd love to turn it over to you to walk through your perspectives there.
I had the privilege and honor of speaking at that event several times after graduation, but it was the second time that I spoke at that event as a Pamplin ambassador that really kind of changed my life. I guess I'll give the brief story of the first time. So the first time I was a Pamplin ambassador starting in my sophomore year, and this was the weekend, like right before April 16th. I delivered a speech to all these incoming freshmen and their parents at Hokey Focus. And I was wearing a suit, but to communicate my passion about Virginia Tech, I actually had a Michael Vick jersey on underneath. And so I actually, like midway through the presentation, like went from like Clark Kent to Superman, pulled my shirt open and showed that 7. And that got me a lot of recognition kind of within the Pamplin ambassador group. And I demonstrated some proficiency with public speaking. So I ended up being dubbed as the closer for all the student speakers for Hokey Focus going forward. So fast forward to the next year, I was speaking at the event, but it was the day after the financial planning program had just gotten back from a field trip in DC. to visit a bunch of financial planning firms and just give the students an idea of what your career might look like and what kind of firm you might want to work at. So going into the event, I knew that I was going to talk about how excited I was about financial planning, how grateful I was that Virginia Tech had put me in this position to find a career that was fulfilling and exciting. And yet I had been speaking on behalf of the university for about a year at that point and was feeling like I needed to mix things up. I've always been passionate about shoes. And there was a student walking in, and I noticed he had these lime green Adidas on. And so I just picked him out. I was like, hey, man, nice shoes, blah, blah, blah. And when I got up on stage, I had my notes written up. But I was like, where's the kid with the shoes? And he put his hand up. And I was like, all right, here's the deal, man. I'm going to give you my notes. All right, you hold them, you keep score. If I hit every point, you give me your shoes. And I'm doing this like on stage in front of the crowd. If I miss, you get a free ride to Virginia Tech. And I don't have the power to actually do that. But of course, now people are hooked. I've got people's attention. I went through the speech. I didn't miss. And he played along. Like he was like, like if I was getting close to missing something or looking like I was going off schedule. But I managed to hit everything. And I closed the presentation by saying, I want to be a rainmaker at a top financial planning firm and ball out of control. Great. So speech is over, and then parents and students are coming up to the stage afterwards, asking questions and connecting with us. And one of the parents was one Elisa Buie, who is the CEO and one of the founders of the firm at which I've been working for my entire career. And she hands me her business card and says, I have a financial planning firm, would love to connect with you, speak to you about potential internships. She was there with her daughter, Lauren, who, fast forward now, Lauren has been one of my business partners for the past several years. We've worked together since she graduated. But doing things, obviously this podcast is called A Reason for Everything, doing the right things for the right reasons. It was a Saturday or Sunday morning. I was volunteering on behalf of the university. I was sharing a story of gratitude and appreciation, trying to, share my passion and hope others would find kind of their paths in the same way that I did at the school. I wasn't looking for a job, but I found one. And so, that particular event, and that's what I was thinking about in terms of full circle when you were sharing with me that, we met at your Hokie Focus. And like I was telling you, the event changed my life because from there, I never actually interviewed. I met with Elisa. We had an interview. But I was hired basically on the strength of that presentation. And then it all went on from there.
That's those are the types of stories that fire me up and why I do this. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. I have a lot of questions off that presentation. The first of which is, do you still keep in touch with the guy with the neon green Adidas?
No, I never got his number. But he was instrumental.
I was gonna say that didn't seem like it seemed like it's all still worked out for you, even though you didn't you might not necessarily close on tech or stay in touch with him. But what an incredible story. And the fact that it's not like this lady just what would you say her name was? Lauren,
yeah, her daughter, right?
And then what was
Elisa?
It's not like Elisa just gave you and helped you get connected to someone else to get a job. The fact that you're still working at that shop to this day is unbelievable to me. Do you ever think back to what would have happened if you would have stayed out late the night before and not gone to the be it a Pamplin ambassador and spoken at that event, or all the different kind of turns that you had to take in order to run into Elisa?
Yeah. So what's funny about when she offered me an internship, I turned her down. I already had an internship. I was set up with GE's financial management program. I was lined up to spend the summer in Stamford, Connecticut. And I did that. I honored that obligation. But had I never met her, I never would have had this counter opportunity to consider. The folks at GE offered me a job at the end of my internship, and I turned that down because I knew I had Yeske Buie kind of floating out here. If I didn't, I might not have. And by the way, GE Asset Management has since kind of been unwound. I don't know where my career would have gone. I would have ended up in corporate America or something. I couldn't tell you. But completely different path. And yeah, if I had been out late or hadn't shown up that morning, who knows?
How cool. The quote of "you want to go be a rainmaker and ball out of control" is kind of ringing in my head right now. I mean, to your point earlier about Professor Clock asking why you're not confident, I feel like that's the perfect right there. Too funny. And so I guess from there, so you end up going to Yeske Buie full time. You've been there your whole career. What has that been like? I mean, especially in today's day and age, I guess you'd probably qualify as a millennial or right on the cusp. And so for someone that to stay at the same shop for their entire career is very unorthodox to this day. And so what's that been like for you? What's kept you in the same role and really kind of what are those kind of hooks that have allowed you to stay and grow where you are?
First sit down that Elisa and I had, this is maybe about a month after we met at Hokey Focus. She said, look, you can make partner here in 10 years. The firm had just been established as a product of a merger. Her predecessor firm, Dave Yeske, our other founder and managing director, his predecessor firm, they had merged in January of 2008, and we met just a couple of months later. But they had a vision for what they were trying to build, and they invited me in. And so to see a woman and learn about her credentials and Dave's credentials, I mean, they're giants in our profession. They've both received the highest honor you possibly could receive as a financial planner. They've contributed at the highest level. They're published. They speak nationally, and they're incredible financial planners. As a minority entering the world of finance, looking at a woman who's the CEO, and I mean, you meet Elisa, and within 5 seconds, you can tell she's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
For her to make that kind of an offer and then have the chance to learn from her and from Dave, and bear in mind, I mean, the environment was one where it was a crazy time to be in finance, right? I mean, 2008, 2009, there was no shortage of learning opportunities. And so, first of all, the fact that they were offering me a job was enough to get me excited. And then once I was there, I mean, the autonomy they provided, the mentorship, it was just tremendous. And I was employee zero, effectively. And so being able to grow with the firm and then actually watch us make the vision that they had real and be a part of it was tremendous. And then, I made partner before my 10th anniversary. We ended up making it happen in 9 years and change. It wasn't all smooth. It wasn't all easy, but I used to go around at our client events saying, this is my first job and it's going to be my last job. It's 22. And I didn't, in my mind, I didn't really connect the dots that many of these people were looking at me like, oh, that's cute, buddy. Sure. Now it's real. Now it's really real. And I still have, 25 years ahead of me in terms of working years. And I'm really excited to see what we're going to be able to do going forward.
Now, you mentioned 08, 09, tough time to be getting into the job market. Probably a lot of corollary to what's going on today for the recent grads or the grads going on right now. So what was that decision process like for you? Obviously, Elisa had a good argument to get you over to Yeske Buie, but how do you go from an offer in hand of GE, one of the biggest businesses in the whole world, and mind you, hindsight's 2020, right? Knowing what you know now about the GE finance division, different story. But in your seat as a 22-year-old, how did you make that decision? How did you kind of come to terms with going to a small shop based in DC as opposed to international conglomerate like GE? What was that decision process like for you?
So after sophomore year, I interned at AOL. We know what happened to them. After junior year, I interned at GE Asset Management, and we know what happened to them. At the time, as you said, we didn't know, but what I did know from my experience was I tried corporate America twice, and I was paid really well. I was treated really well, but I was, one person on a conveyor belt along with hundreds or thousands of other people. And it was really easy for me to disappear in both places. I mean, I did well, but I'd get my work done early in the week, and then there's nothing else to do. I wasn't challenged, I wasn't stimulated, and no one was out there checking for me to try to give me more. And I appreciate I'm sounding a bit self-absorbed here. And in that moment, in that part of my life, I was 22, I was trying to find a job, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my, degree, and I was going to feed myself. And I knew that kind of a job wasn't going to engage me. And so given an opportunity to work at a firm where, within 6 months of me joining, the only people who worked at Yeske Buie were Yeske Buie, me, and a client service administrator. There's nowhere to hide. And the world was on fire. And so I didn't understand this in the same way that I understand it now, but there was some kind of implicit knowledge that exposure was good. The opportunity that kind of exposure presented was good. And at a bare minimum, the information, the knowledge that I was going to be gathering was learning how to manage money. It's a skill I think everyone should have. Am I biased? Yes. Am I wrong? Probably not. So, and like the way GE structured the offer, they tried to squeeze me. They offered like a signing bonus of like $3,000, starting salary was $55,000, and they wanted me to commit like before business horizons, before all the career fairs and whatnot. And for whatever reason, I didn't like that. And so I just said no. And I said no to GE before I had the offer from Yeske Buie. I just did it on faith.
I'm sure folks in your network, whether it be your family or friends or other advisors at school, are saying, you're crazy for this. How do you fight through, whether through the kind of noise from other people, even if they might have been right, knowing with all else equal at that time, how do you kind of trust that gut, trust that faith in periods like that?
Faith has always been a tremendous part of my life. And I credit my parents with instilling, a deep relationship with a higher power in me. And yet, even my parents were like, you're crazy. I had an internship. So I did a winternship with Yeske Buie. And so I had that lined up when I turned GE down. And, self-confidence is not an issue for me. I believed I could turn it into a job offer if a job offer was available. And, credit to Dave and Elisa, after they offered me at the end of that internship, my parents still had their doubts. They actually came over to dinner. They, in a sense, courted me or recruited me. My parents had them over sometime after the offer was extended. And Dave and Elisa basically gave them every opportunity to drill them about their intentions with their son. And they answered all the questions. And by the end of dinner, my dad's like, all right, it seems like a good idea. My mom is like tearfully accepting the boy. I moved to San Francisco. I worked in our San Francisco office for the first year of my career before transitioning back to Virginia. But they put in the work to help dispel some of those doubts. So appreciation for them being willing to do that.
You're like a 5-star recruit, and they're Nick Saban in Alabama coming over for dinner to convince your parents.
Exactly.
So I guess while we're on the top, you mentioned San Francisco, and just for the sake of relevance, that's all I feel like I'm seeing in the news. And I've been over there a couple of times for work over the last few years. And for someone that lived over there, I'm not sure if you've been back recently, but it is a problem, and all of the issues going on there, not just in San Francisco, but in a lot of cities. But would love to your input on it, being in the financial planning space and helping people manage their money and seeing the problems folks are facing. Obviously, the individuals in your all's portfolio are different than the folks on the streets of San Francisco, but any thoughts on the current crisis going on there and a lot of other cities?
Yeah, I mean, costs are out of whack in so many ways. And we know specifically with San Francisco, you can blame big tech and all those companies basically driving prices upward in ways that most people can't afford to live in the city or around the city. The solution, I don't know. But we're seeing that people are economizing. And so I have a master's degree in economics, and I can't help but think like an economist. You provide a situation where the incentives to stay are outweighed by the incentives to leave. And you watch people make choices. People are finding out they're not wed to a certain location. In many respects, in many careers, for financial planners, yes, we do a lot of meeting with our clients virtually. And, before you hand everyone every single dollar you've ever saved, a lot of people still like to shake your hand. And so we very much believe that, having a physical presence in the cities that we're located matters. For many careers, many professions, that's no longer the case. And so you're seeing people relocate where and when they have the opportunity. And, again, thinking like an economist, prices will always find equilibrium. The path to that equilibrium might be rocky and might be long, but the current situation isn't sustainable long term. And so something will change. It's just a matter of what and how and when.
You mentioned big tech, and obviously the other thought top of mind is AI and everything going on with large language models. And so while we're at it, I mean, people are saying that all of our jobs are at risk because of this new technology up and coming. And we'll love maybe just any quick input you have there. Obviously, no one has a crystal ball, but any perspectives you might have and what you guys are talking about on the day-to-day, not holding you to anything, but just on a personal level, any thoughts on the whole AI thought?
I'm smiling because I'm getting ready to sound really old. At the beginning of my career, the buzz was that robo-advisors were going to take over. No one's going to need anybody to manage their portfolio because the robos are coming and financial planners are dead. It's just not the case. AI and this is the same thing that we can say about robos. Rebalancing software has gotten way better. Between the way that I used to trade, 10, 12 years ago and the way that we trade now, I can review all of my clients' accounts and put together trades that need to be traded within a half hour. And we look every 2 weeks. Crazy efficient. But I'm still the one pushing the button. Whether or not that will always be the case, I don't know. Whether or not it will always be necessary for me to run stuff through financial planning software, or maybe the software will be smart enough to do it itself, fine. I'm still going to be important in some capacity. My team will be important in some capacity because at the end of the day, people need people. You need the human element to navigate the space in between the technical aspects of the plan. A robot can optimize and can run calculations all day long, but it can't actually hold your hand and walk you through a trade-off. It can't actually meet you where you are after you've lost a spouse or a child or gone through a divorce. Financial planning, yes, a part of it is about optimizing your finances. But the part that's about optimizing your life and making decisions with those finances that make you feel like you're living your best, most authentic life, in my estimation, that's still going to require the help of another human being.
I agree with you. And I think also being someone in the relationships business, it's, nothing changes. Obviously, we're on Zoom here, but nothing changes or trades off for being in person with someone. So I agree with you. You mentioned, I've heard the argument that the good thing about this up and coming technology is, in theory, could help create perfect markets where you're able to do exactly what you want to do and make whatever that threshold income is for you to be able to live a comfortable life. And you're actually truly, you're living to work, but your work is what you actually love to do. So I guess if that's the case, say markets become perfect, everyone's able to do what they want to do all day long and still make a living from it, truly making a living. I'd be curious, if you're not financial planning, what would you want to be doing right now? What would you, if keeping the lights on, paying the bills wasn't a situation to think about, what's that perfect job like for you?
So I'm about growth. All the work that I do and all the work that I've done, anything that I'm passionate about, it gets traced back to growth. And I had that, we do a lot of work at work about coming up with our own personal mission statements, purpose statements, who are you and why do you do what you do? And our business coach was really hammering me about this because I was trying to give him an answer for a long time, months on end. And he was just like, that's not it, Yusuf. That's not it. That's not it. You're trying too hard. You're forcing it. I had an experience with my son. This was a couple of years ago. I was giving him a bath and we were talking about listening. At the time, he was like 3. And I gave him a couple of steps to know, like, this is how you know you're being a good listener. And as I went through the steps with him, the way that he responded, like, he not only captured what I was saying, he didn't just regurgitate it, but like he built on it. And I was like, you're being a good listener right now. And he was like, no. So first of all, it's just like mind-blowing stuff from a 3-year-old. But in that moment, because I was kind of in the thick of it with this, personal mission statement or personal purpose statement, I was like, this is it. Because this feeling that I have right now, like I'm ready to go to work now. And I get excited about growth. When I can be a part of someone's growth process, I'm happy. So I could be doing anything. Financial planning works really well. I could be a teacher, I could be a doctor. Anything that's service oriented where I can have relationships with people and help them move from where they are to where they want to be. I would be happy.
Did you ever work any sort of service job when you were like in high school or anything, or was that just never something you did?
We were very involved in our community growing up. Service was just kind of expected culturally within our family. Obviously, but prosum that I may serve is our tagline at Virginia Tech. And leadership, right? So I've always gravitated towards leadership positions. People have told me, I have natural charisma, leadership ability. I'm tall, deep voice, and all that kind of stuff. So it's all there in terms of skill set. But I, as a younger person, gravitated towards leadership positions because of the glamour aspect, right? I want to be the guy. What I've learned through having those leadership positions and opportunities over and over, leadership really is service. There's a great Simon Sinek book, Leaders Eat Last. And if you've read the title, you get the premise. But it's just like, oh, okay. And so being a husband, being a father, being a financial planner, being a friend, being a brother, being a son, you are asked in so many instances to lead. And so having those opportunities and getting so much great mentorship from so many people throughout my life, that's probably where the mindset comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the point about leading and being the guy, the thing that comes to mind for that with you is you're not shy of the camera, not shy of speaking. As I mentioned before, recording, I obviously spoke at my the quasi orientation Hokey Focus event. We connected on LinkedIn or socials and stayed in touch just kind of ambiently through that. And then one day I was watching, I don't know if it was Golf Channel or CNBC, but some old man television network, and I see who I thought was you on a Charles Schwab commercial, and I messaged him like, am I missing something here? Is that you on TV? And we went back and forth. So we'd love to understand how that opportunity came to be, because you were a TV star for a little while.
Yeah, and you don't even know it, but you're asking a perfect question with a perfect segue. So we at Yeske Buie use Charles Schwab as our custodian. So we have a deep strategic relationship with Charles Schwab. they have what's called an executive leadership program for financial planners. And so I was enrolled in that program 2018. So it was a year after Noah was born. And I did well in the program and got noticed, and then was asked subsequent to that if I'd be open to participating in Schwab's initiative for, oh gosh, now I'm going to go stupid and forget exactly what it's called. It's in my bio. The initiative is focused on just identifying the importance of working with an independent advisor, the Independent Difference Campaign. There you go. And I was like, of course, I'd be honored to participate. It's, free exposure. Again, you can't lose with that. And so we filmed the spot. I flew out to California like one morning in July of 19, and then like caught a red eye out the same day. Like I was literally just there to film the commercial and then go. It was only supposed to run for 4 months, and you had the channels right. It was CNBC, Golf, and I think Bloomberg, and maybe something else. But then COVID. And so what they had done in prior years was reshoot with a new cast of characters every year. But because of COVID, it ran with our spot for 19, 20, and 20.
How crazy.
I mean, it's just lucky, really lucky to get that much exposure and that much more exposure than was ultimately, promised. But it was an incredible opportunity, and a lot came out of that. There were, still images that they posted in the Wall Street Journal after President Biden and Vice President Harris were elected. Or maybe it was inaugurated, I can't remember. But anyway, there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal and about like just the historicness of having a Black South Asian, woman in office. And it's my face, a full page ad right next to it in the Wall Street Journal. Our clients are seeing that. Like I'm having a moment seeing that. But yeah, I mean, just a gift. The whole experience was a gift.
That's incredible. I mean, I can sense your gratitude through the screen, and no, I mean, I feel like that's the right way to think about it. A total gift, and maybe a little bit of luck and a whole lot of chance, but it's exciting nonetheless. And I guess, as we round out with that, I'd love to know just whether it be for Noah and Ryan or for anyone else listening, would love to know any advice you have for folks, whether it be coming out of school in their career now or even later on in life, advice you have, just life advice or any closing thoughts you might have would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, doing the right thing for the right reasons is what got me everywhere in life. I'm a planner, and yet the plan that I had for myself relative to how my life actually unfolded, I'll take my life as I have it rather than what I drew up. And my life as I have it is almost purely a function of, again, what comes out of doing the right things for the right reasons. And so, when you asked me to come on, reason for everything, I'm like, that's my life. I mean, truly. And so what I would say is, put yourself out there. For me, it's public speaking in whatever way you can get noticed, whatever way you can. I share with students, you can network by going to networking events and swapping business cards, or you can network productively. For example, you volunteer. There you're building relationships, you're demonstrating a skill, you're working in service of a passion, you're doing something for the right reasons. And you end up building relationships that will, in my experience at least, serve you much more fully than, a plastic conversation at a bar that you're going to forget about as soon as you leave. So I would say put yourself out there and do the right things for the right reasons, and trust. And if you're doing those things, good things will probably happen for you.
I couldn't agree more, and really appreciative of your time. And it's a pleasure to reconnect and catch up. And sorry, I don't have any green shoes for you on this one, but no, it was great to talk with you, and we'll have to get together sometime soon in the DC area. But I'll be sure to plug your socials in the show notes, and really appreciate your time, Yusuf.